Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. America's disastrous war in the Middle East is now in its sixth month. Its economy is in a tailspin, and Donald Trump is in a rage because his ballroom has been put on hold. Remember, this is what Donald Trump wanted and promised, a 90,000 square foot white and gold behemoth that would dwarf the actual White House. It would be the biggest thing on that plot of land by far. This is what Donald Trump has given you. A gaping hole in the heart of the country. He posted this photo this week. Look at that. He's proud of that. He is proud of demolishing the East Wing without asking any of our permission or Congress, to build a Trump monstrosity, to build a ego palace for himself. But today, a federal appeals court ruled 2-1. No, buddy, that actually he is supposed to ask permission. Because, and this really cannot be stressed enough, it is not his house or his land, it is ours. And so the appeals court majority put on hold what has to be the single biggest renovation ever undertaken by a renter in all of human history. In its lengthy ruling, the court majority wrote, "The president has no and claims no constitutionally assigned authority over that property. Whether or not a massive ballroom should be constructed is for Congress to decide and is not a matter for executive self-help." Whew. That ruling appears to have affected Trump deeply. He is in his feelings about it on the internet. That's based on the nearly 500-word rant he posted on social media. Quote, "The military and Secret Service are viewing this horrendous, politically motivated and unlawful ruling as a national security threat to our nation, in that the entire complex is being built for the protection of our country and additionally all future presidents. It is all tied together as one big, expensive and very complex unit, which is vital for national security and military operations of the United States of America. This unjust decision must be overturned by the Supreme Court in its entirety." I didn't read the whole thing, just so you know. Notice as soon as they strike it down, it's like the national security military complex and not the ballroom. Like, it was the ballroom. He called it the ballroom. He talked about how there had to be a ballroom. That was the original, the project. Now it's like the military complex. So forget about Iran, where we are still at war. There's still no deal. Forget about the price of gas, which is still above $4 a gallon, has been for months. If you want to know what the president of the United States spends all of his time thinking about as president, it's clear as day. This is it. I mean, it's obvious if you watch him, but do not take my word for it. Here is the reporter who may know Trump better than any others, Maggie Haberman of the New York Times.
How much of his time actually goes into the renovation now?
A lot. If you looked at like a chart of his mind share, like this, I will say about getting into his mind, like 70% of it would be on his renovations. It's a legacy thing, but it's, I always think of legacy with him different than the way we usually use the word legacy. It's not what am I leaving behind for the world? It's what am I leaving behind so the world can't kick me off the world.
Trump cannot see anything beyond these projects to glorify him. The ballroom, there was the reflecting pool, there's the arch, which he's still like raising money from God knows who and in God knows which way. There's the Trump coins and the Trump passports and the statues he's gilding everywhere and all this weird nonsense. The man wants to be surrounded by his gold leaf landlord special decor everywhere he goes. Even today, sitting in a White House press conference for the mining industry, behind a table with a sign reading "American mining, American jobs," right? Clearly set up by his political minders who were like, you have to talk about things ostensibly about the American people. All he wanted to do was talk about renovating.
I'm liking the chandeliers. I like those Corinthian columns, but I don't know, cutting them out would be not good. Those are beautiful columns. But I'm allowed to do it. Every once in a while, I'll come in here and grab a painting and put it at the Oval Office, right?
He can't help himself. He cannot help himself. And again, this all would be funny if he wasn't the president of the United States and there wasn't a war going on. But at least there's nothing else going on today the president should be focusing on, right?
Minus 23,000. No rebound for the July jobs report. Negative 23,000. Again, a disappointing jobs report.
23,000 jobs lost in July.
It's so bad that even the folks at Fox cannot find a way to spin it. Yes, we lost a ton of jobs last month, but that actually isn't even the worst news because economists expected a gain of 83,000 jobs in July. Instead, we lost 23,000, 100,000 job miss. And this report also revised May and June job numbers down by 103,000. And yet unemployment ticked down, which is a sure sign that more people are just dropping out of the labor market entirely instead of seeking new jobs. In fact, according to this chart by our friend, the economist Justin Wolfers, the only job sectors that have grown since Trump took office, and this is ironic when you think about the macho man appeal of Donald Trump, right? We're going to get back to mining and we're going to build stuff and manufacturing. The only thing that has grown is healthcare and social services. That's it. That's where all the jobs are. The rest of the U.S. economy has cut more than 350,000 jobs. Now, those are numbers that would concern most presidents going into a midterm election. But concerned is not how Donald Trump rolls. He's unbothered as he sat down today with Punchbowl co-founder and MS Now political contributor Jake Sherman.
Well, a lot of people are saying I'm one of the greatest presidents ever, but our country right now is doing better than it's ever done. You know, when I see polls on the economy, I should have 150%, not 100%.
Well, yeah.
Because we have the greatest. This is the golden age of America.
I don't think that's how percentages work. But that aside, it absolutely is not a golden age in America. I mean, it is in the Oval Office, and it is across the White House, and it is if you're Donald Trump shanking your putts and having your caddy make up for you. It's a golden age in a literal sense in that Oval Office where Trump is literally adding the color gold to everything. But this week, MS Now reporter Alex Tabbitt spoke with Trump voters in Ohio. And their general feeling was, this all sucks.
I was hoping that gas was going to go down so I could do something, you know. You can't do anything with gas prices, and you just can't. You can't afford to breathe at this point.
Well, I can get laid off tomorrow, then I'm pretty much homeless. Because, you know, you can't save now.
No, I'm good on Trump, man. That's all I got to say.
What does it feel like to be living in these conditions right now, in these economic conditions right now?
Hurt. Very hurt. I try to do... Sorry, I cried. I try to do a lot for my kids, and I can't do much.
If you could send a message to the president right now, what would you tell him?
He needs to look out for the American people instead of himself. Put us first.
Does America feel great again?
No, not at all.
Sam Stein is the managing editor of The Bulwark and an MS Now contributor. Valencia Johnson is a Democratic strategist who worked as a senior advisor to the 2020 Biden campaign, and they both join me now. Sam, as I watched that tape, I was thinking that Alex Tabbitt should have said to them, but what about the ballroom? Aren't you psyched about the ballroom? Isn't that, what about that? What if we build that ballroom? Wouldn't that, and we put in Corinthian columns, wouldn't that make you happier?
Yeah, they might not go for the Corinthian columns. That might not be the choice. You know, that was kind of like a really heartbreaking video, and it really got to the dichotomy of what's happening here. The obsession with the ballroom and all these beautification projects, it's clearly something that he loves to do. It's where his attention is, as Maggie noted. And it comes at this obvious political cost, because if you're just an average political observer, you're watching the president just spend all his time and day and energy doing these renovation projects. And, you know, the ballroom, it's totally absurd, right? I mean, of all the things that he's done, obviously he's done more pernicious and damaging things, more hurtful things, more unethical things. Although I will say one of the elements of the ballroom that's really underappreciated is how unethical it is, right? Who is funding the actual private stream of donations? We just don't know. But putting that aside, if you just step back and you think about what he did, he literally demolished a third of the White House complex without saying he was going to do it, getting permission to do it. In fact, his first inclination was he was going to leave the East Wing intact. And now he's like, well, can't I just go ahead and do it when the courts step in? And it's symbolic of a president who is distracted, who's egotistical, who is focused in all the wrong directions, and who's probably going to pay at the polls for it.
Yeah, this line from the ruling. I mean, I keep thinking about this idea. I mean, sort of a jokey idea, but like if you were renting a house that had a garage, and you were just like, I'm going to demo the garage. I'm going to build something here.
Yeah, see it.
The landlord shows up like, no, you can't do that. Like, this is the ruling says the holding has nothing at all to do whether the proposed ballroom is desirable or not as a matter of policy. At this preliminary stage, the National Trust has shown compellingly, Congress has not ceded unfettered authority to the executive to radically redesign, reshape, and reconstruct the White House, the People's House, to fit a particular president's desires. Like, it isn't his house, it's ours. And Alencia, on the jobs part and also the price part, when you watch that tape that Alex Tabbitt put together, which was great, I got to think about Biden people that were in that administration, who could not really control the fact that inflation was going up. There were external things that did it. There was not a ton the president could do about it. Having that be the signature issue of that election, and now turning around and watching all this play out and how you feel about it.
Yeah, it is extremely heartbreaking to watch that video, to hear the pain in those people's voices. I have family members who actually help with people who are unhoused, who are losing their jobs. They actually need food assistance, and it is very real. And I remember during the Biden administration, there were a lot of conversations on Democratic circles, and that we actually have to do a better job of communicating how these policies would actually take a little bit of time, right? Like President Biden passed some very strong, economic bills, but it would take a long time for people to actually feel that. So how do you communicate this while also really talking about the dangers of the incoming Trump administration? I think one of the things that we are learning is that folks who would support us, whether Democrats or people who are tired of Trump, are actually tired of folks talking about who Trump is and what the Democrats are for. We have actually not had a great message until now, when the affordability conversation has actually been the thing that has poked through because of the big ugly bill that unfortunately passed. But I think a lot of folks are feeling a little bit of remorse and honestly thinking, what could we have done different to communicate to the American people what this could be and what this would feel like?
Yeah.